remember, the key to success in real estate is staying informed and being proactive. We're in the midst of a perfect storm for buyers out there where there is a lot of inventory and lowering rates. We haven't seen conditions like this since 2008, but it's also especially a great opportunity for the first-time buyers out there to take advantage of these market conditions, or some of those move-up buyers who are looking to get into freehold, detached, or semi-detached houses in the city of Toronto and not having to move 1 to 2 hours outside of the city to find an affordable home. Hey there, people. Welcome back to Under the Radar Real Estate. I'm your host, as always, Joshua Jean-Baptiste, and I'm your guide to navigating Toronto's vibrant real estate market. Now, have you ever wondered if your dream home is hiding just around the corner? Or maybe you're curious about how much your house is really worth in today's shifting market? Well, you're in the right place. And on today's episode, we're diving deep into some hot topics that every Toronto buyer and seller needs to know. We'll break down the latest market price index, reveal how quickly homes are selling in the most sought-after neighborhoods, and we'll uncover the hidden gems that could be your next home. And don't worry, I'm not going to bore you with another deep dive into the Bank of Canada rate announcement because, let's face it, every single agent in Toronto has already made millions of videos on that very topic. So instead, we're going to cut through the noise and get straight to the point of what really matters to you. So if you're new here, hit that subscribe button and ring that bell to stay updated with all the latest episodes. And for our loyal listeners, welcome back. Your support means the absolute world to us. And then remember, this is more than just a podcast, it's a community. So if you have questions or thoughts, drop them in the comments. I love hearing from you, and I might even try and answer some of your questions in our next episode. So stay tuned, because later in the episode, I'll be revealing a surprising trend in one of Toronto's most overlooked neighborhoods. You definitely don't want to miss it. All right, so let's dive into our first major topic, the Market Price Index, or MPI as I like to call it. So understanding the MPI can give you a clear picture of whether we're in a buyer's market or a seller's market. It's a very simple metric that I created and I dropped in our last podcast. So what exactly is the MPI? Well, it's a measure that helps us understand market conditions. So a positive MPI would indicate a seller's market where sellers are in control. A negative MPI points more towards a buyer's market where buyers have more choice and they dictate price. The formula then adjusts for the months of inventory and the sales to new listings ratio, providing a balanced view of the entire market. So if we look at Toronto as a whole, for example, the MPI is currently at a minus 62. So this would mean that we're leaning towards a buyer's market in the city of Toronto. But what does this mean for you? Well, if you're looking to buy right now, it's pointing to the fact that it might be a great time to buy and find some deals in the market. Sellers, on the other hand, you may need to be a bit more strategic with pricing and marketing of your home. You really want your home to stand out when there are a lot of options on offer for the buyers out there. Now, if we were to break it down further and look at some of the under the radar neighborhoods that we focus on this channel, if we look at C03, it has an MPI of minus 47.5. W03, we're looking at 29.5, minus 29.5, and W04, we are standing at minus 51. So all of these areas are pointing towards buyer-friendly conditions, with W03 being a little bit closer to balance. So they all present very unique opportunities. And coming up, we're going to discuss what these numbers actually mean for your buying and selling strategy, especially the under the radar neighborhoods. You're going to really understand what these MPI numbers mean and how buyers out there may be able to take advantage of a unique opportunity in the market. But first, if you're finding this information useful, don't forget to give us a thumbs up and share this podcast with your friends. Your support helps us a ton, and it really helps you bring some of the under the radar market insights. And then before we jump into our next segment, if you have any questions about the MPI, want to know more about any specific area, if you want us to apply that MPI to your area, drop a comment below. I love hearing from you, and I'll answer any of your questions down in the comments. So let's move on to one of the most asked questions. How much is my house worth in today's market? Or if you're a buyer, how much are the homes that I'm looking for in this neighborhood? You know that when we look at average prices in the city of Toronto and in the different neighborhoods, we like to pull up the HPI index. It offers a more smoothed out version of the numbers, takes away some of the peaks and the valleys, and gives you a bit more of like an accurate read on where the sales numbers are at in the specific neighborhoods that we like to target. But before we get into the under the radar neighborhoods, let's first look at Toronto numbers. Pull it up on the screen. All right, so let's start looking at the numbers. I said we're going to look at the HPI. This is the Market Watch report that us as realtors get every month. As consumers, you also have access to this report. I believe it's at torontomls.net. Click there, you can find some of this report. But we are going to scroll right down to the numbers that we like to use, which is the home price index. All right, so here we are, home price index, and these numbers are for May 2024. When we look at the city of Toronto, which is highlighted in black right here. So the city of Toronto, the composite price was just under $1.1 million, which was down about 3% over last year. And that's for all home types in the city of Toronto. When we look at detached house prices, we're looking at a number at about just over 1.7 million, as you can see here on the screen, and those are down almost 2% over last year. When we look at single family attached, which are semi-detached houses, average price was just over 1.3, and they were down about 0.5% over last year. Townhouses, you can see here on the screen, just under 900 grand, they were down 1%, and condos hovering just over $700,000, down 4% over last year. So you can see right across the board, numbers are down. And we look in the year-over-year summary down here in the right-hand corner. You can see sales were down significantly over last year, but active listings were up significantly over last year. So last year, in terms of active listings, there was about 12,000 listings on offer in May of 2023. We look at May of 2024, there were almost 22,000 listings on the market. So what does this mean? So when we talked about the MPI numbers in our last segment, the market pulse index, and whether it indicates a buyer's or seller's market, what the MPI index was showing was the months of inventory and the sales to new listings ratio. So there's a lot of inventory and there aren't a ton of sales that are snapping up all of that additional inventory. So the MPI index being in the negative is really showing that buyers are in control. They have a lot of choice. So that then explains why we saw, when you scroll back down to the HPI, that's why we saw average price in the city of Toronto down pretty much across the board in every home type, with condos leading the charge when we look at prices versus last year. And that's because the condo market is also very well supplied. If I were to pull up MLS right now, I think there's just over 6,000 condos listed for sale on the Toronto MLS right now. Now, we look at some of the under the radar neighborhoods to give people some perspective. And there's this one neighborhood that for the past year, and you can go back through my videos, I keep telling you about this neighborhood, is C03, which I had a listing there just last month. You can check it out. The video is on YouTube. It was a beautiful house on Arlington. We sold it for a great price. This neighborhood, C03, when we look at all of the neighborhoods in Toronto, all the different segments from W01 right through to E11, if we look at the overall composite benchmark price for every single one of these neighborhoods, they're all in the negative over last year, except for one neighborhood, which is C03. I mean, there's a couple of neighborhoods that are pretty much even, so like minus or plus 0.5%, but C03 numbers were up over 6% over last year when we look at C03. So it's the only neighborhood that is trending above the overall market. And I've been screaming on this channel that C03 is one of the most under the radar neighborhoods in Toronto, might be the most under the radar neighborhood in Canada. And why is that? So C03, average price at $1.7 million right away. Some of you watching this may be like, how was that under the radar? Well, if we look at its neighboring neighborhood, just north of it, if we were to look at it on a map of C04, where the average price is just under 2.2 million, easy to see you're saving about $500,000 on average for the average home in C03 versus C04. If we look at detached house prices in C03 were up just over 5% over last year at an average of about 2.2 million. And again, that's a big number, but if we were to look at its neighboring neighborhood just to the north, C04, the average price is 2.8 million. So you're saving almost $600,000 over the neighboring neighborhood for very similar homes. Then we look at semi-detached houses, and I know the semi-detached house price as well because I just sold a semi in C03 and we got a record number for that sale in the neighborhood. And I like to pat myself on the back that I'm great at marketing and a good realtor, but also because this is an under the radar neighborhood and people are just starting to see value. So the average price is about 1.4 million for a semi-detached house. And then when we look at townhouses in C03, some big numbers. There aren't a lot of townhouses there, so I mean, you can look at this number at 1.7 million, which is actually down over last year. Aren't a lot of townhouses in this pocket. Most of the townhouses would be actually brand new build towns, which is why the price is so high. But then the big number right here, folks, condos. Average price of just over $900,000, up a whopping 12% over last year. And why is that? Well, when the average house price in this neighborhood is well north of 1.7 million, if buyers want to be in this under the radar neighborhood, the only affordable option under $1 million are condos. And that's why we're seeing condo prices in this neighborhood start to spike and skyrocket, because you can still get into this neighborhood for under $1 million on the condo side. Now it's creeping up to $1 million. So at $935,000 as an average, it's creeping up there, but it's possible. And it's clearly being reflected in the pricing. Now, when we look at some of the other under the radar neighborhoods, the overall trends in terms of the percentages are pretty much tracking the city trends. I mean, W03, the year-over-year change prices are up about 1%. If you look at all houses in W03, for W04, they're down about 2%. So kind of in line with where the city's at. But with W03 and W04, why these are under the radar neighborhoods is if you look at the average price. So in W03, when we look at it if we were to compare it to the city of Toronto, you're saving about $90,000 on average for a house in W03 versus the city. If we were to go to W04, you were saving like $180,000 over the overall average in the city of Toronto. And then if we look at detached houses, which are kind of the jewel of most buyers' eyes, average price of a detached house in W03 is under 1.1 million, when the average in the city of Toronto is 1.7 million. Say that again, the average in Toronto, 1.7 for a detached house. When we look at W03, it's just under 1.1 million. So you were saving $600,000 on a detached house in W03 over the overall average in the city of Toronto. And where is W03? If we look at the historic neighborhood of York prior to amalgamation, would have been in the south portion of that. That probably means nothing to a lot of you people. Best way to look at it, it's about Eglinton in the north. You have Weston Road, Heel in the west. Let's say about Dufferin in the east, and then down south to about St. Clair. So that pocket of the city, why am I calling this an under the radar neighborhood? Well, you have major transit already being built in the area. You have a brand new GO station being built at Caledonia, which will get you downtown quickly. If you go over close to the western side, Weston already has the Up Express that gets you downtown in under 20 minutes. And then on the north end of the neighborhood up in Eglinton, you have the brand new LRT that's about to open. So unlike some other transit projects in the Greater Toronto area or in Toronto that are either in the planning phase or just starting to undergo construction, This line is almost done. The stations are there. They're running test trains. You just got to get the TTC in the city to come to terms and get this thing running, but it's about to open. And in C03, we're already seeing the effects of it. So C03, it's also a neighborhood that's going to be serviced by the new LRT, the Crosstown LRT. W03 is a little bit further west, and this neighborhood is about to blow. So you can get a detached house in W03 for just under 1.1 million when the average is 1.7 million. It's best to start looking at this neighborhood right now because, as I like to say in all these podcasts, these neighborhoods are unlikely to stay under the radar for much longer. So that about recaps the stats on Toronto and the under the radar neighborhoods. Clearly, you can see there's a buying opportunity. So, I mean, whether you're buying or selling, the key is to understand the market dynamics. So sellers, price your home competitively to attract serious buyers. That's the message. If you're priced well and marketed well, you will sell in this market. And for buyers, you've got to be prepared to act quickly in some of the competitive neighborhoods. So while most of the city of Toronto, you do have the upper hand, if you're looking at a neighborhood like C03, which encompasses the neighborhoods of like South Forest Hill, Oakwood Village, Humewood, Hillcrest, so in these pockets, it's still a very competitive market. So you got to be ready to act quickly to seize the moment, and don't just look at the overall general market statistics. Work with an agent who knows the neighborhood, knows the area, and understands these market dynamics. All right, so that's a wrap for today's episode of Under the Radar Real Estate. We've shortened our podcast format a little bit. We want to try to keep it under 15 minutes. We want to keep these short and brief. Just really give you the goods, give you the facts, and then get out of here. So we've covered a lot of ground from the market price index to neighborhood spotlights. So remember, the key to success in real estate is staying informed and being proactive. So with the Bank of Canada cutting rates and signaling further rate cuts in the near future, we're in the midst of a perfect storm for buyers out there where there is a lot of inventory and lowering rates. We haven't seen conditions like this since 2008, but it's also especially a great opportunity for the first-time buyers out there to take advantage of these market conditions and taking advantage of some of these under-the-radar neighborhoods, some of these overlooked, less talked about neighborhoods. I mean, I talk about it all the time, but the overall general market doesn't talk about. There's opportunity out there, especially for first-time buyers or some of those move-up buyers who are looking to get into freehold, detached, or semi-detached houses in the city of Toronto and not having to move 1 to 2 hours outside of the city to find an affordable freehold home. Next week, we'll be diving into some exciting new content. We'll be giving you the lowdown on best strategies for first-time buyers, so you definitely don't want to miss out. So as always, stay tuned, stay informed, and see you next time. Peace out.